Welcome back to a new Lead with Confidence. I'm your host, JP Warren. Networking is a terrifying thing. Think about this. You have to walk into a room full of potential tens or hundreds of people, strangers, that you have to network with and get their business, get their contact, connect with people, and next thing you know, you carry that on to a business transaction. But here's the deal. Walking into a room is extremely uncomfortable when it's full of strangers. But not only that, how do you actually enter a conversation when people are already tied up together in a group, having a conversation that's already been going on? Today, we're going to talk about actually how to open up these groups of people that are already talking and how to insert yourself in their conversation and do it naturally, do it comfortably, and do it confidently, okay? So the reality is this. I often tell people there's 3 ways to go to networking events. The first one, you go by yourself, you don't really talk to anyone, you hug the wall, you get the meal, you listen to the speaker, and you leave. Hey, checkbox that, right? You did a good job. You actually went there. It was probably uncomfortable, but you still did it. The second thing I tell people to do is grab a buddy, grab a work colleague or maybe someone that is a friend in the industry and go together. Now, chances are you might stay together and just keep talking by yourself. But hey, you still went, you still were seen, you still maybe met 1 or 2 people, and then you left the room. The third thing I challenge you to do, which to me is the most effective way, is you go in there, whether you're solo or with a friend, and you actually treat it like a game and see how many people you can actually have genuine conversations with. And listen, this might mean you walk away with 1 genuine conversation that can actually move the needle in your business, or you walk away with 5 or 6. But the point is getting out of your comfort zone, getting in front of strangers and turning those strangers into connections, okay? So how do we do that? So I want to. Here's some frameworks and tips for you to actually do this, to actually enter a group of people talking, and how to insert yourself and do it casually, naturally, and confidently. Okay. So the first thing that I often tell people to do is, number 1, name the elephant. Listen, if you're there, you walk into it, you just identify a group of people, and they might be having an interesting conversation. If you just walk up to them and name the elephant, hey, listen, I'm kind of here by myself. You all seem like a very interesting group, having a good conversation. Do you mind if I join? Guarantee you, unless it's confidential, private, which it's not going to be at a networking event, they're going to welcome you into their group, because that's what networking events are. They're there to meet people. So they're going to welcome you in the group. Now, this is kind of a little tangent, a little asterisk I'm going to talk about right now. Once you do get into that group, right, they're probably going to ask you a question. What do you do? Or, questions like that. Have some responses prepped. This is what we talked about previously in an episode, getting your elevator pitch down. That's why it's so important for you to practice your elevator pitch before you actually do open up this circle of strangers when you introduce yourself, right? You want to know what to say. But not only that, I often challenge people to have 1 or 2 questions in their back pocket once, after their elevator pitch, to keep the conversation back on, to keep it flowing and back, to get it back on track to kind of whatever they were talking about. So whenever you do enter a group of strangers, name the elephant in the room. Say, hey, listen, it's kind of awkward. It's a networking event. I don't really know anyone. You mind if I enter this group? It sounds like an interesting group. You kind of look like a fun group to kind of be a part of. And I just kind of want to just chime in because, I'm kind of here by myself. Okay. So the first framework is name the elephant in the room. Okay. The second thing I want you to do is ask. Don't sell, okay? So whenever you enter a group of people talking at a networking event and all that stuff, don't try to pitch them anything. Don't try to sell them anything. Don't try to offload about you and all that stuff, because you are a guest to that conversation currently, okay? So maybe you ask about them. And again, the best part about networking, where you gain the most information, is asking about other people. Well, don't they want to hear about me? Sure they do. But the thing is, though, if you're asking about other people, if you're trying to get their personal, whatever they do on their personal time and all that stuff, you're trying to create that bond, you can take that information and have a much more effective follow-up, right? You can connect on that. So let's say it's someone that likes to listen to AI podcasts about entrepreneurship, right? You ask them, hey, what kind of podcasts do they kind of tell you that information? From that piece of information, you can remember that person that was talking about that, get their contact information. And let's say that's somebody you want to extend the conversation with. In that follow-up, you can provide a link to maybe a podcast pertaining to AI and entrepreneurship, and say, hey, listen, I know you brought this up. I just kind of want to share this with you. It was great meeting you at that networking event. Hope to carry this conversation further. What you're doing, you're establishing trust. They're getting that the message in their inbox. It's not a sell. It's not a pitch. If anything, it's more value for them. So that just builds the bridge of trust right there. So again, enter the conversation and ask people about their experience, what they're there for, what they're trying to get out. Have they heard the speaker before? Things like that. But then you can take that information and use that for the follow-up. Okay. The third thing that I want you to do is potentially, let's say there's a group that looks kind of intimidating and all that stuff. I guarantee you this, if you look around the room, there's going to be a few people that are standing solo, right? Probably with the same nerves, probably with the same kind of anxieties about walking in a room full of strangers to network. Find them, right? Go over to them and introduce yourself, right? They're there by themselves. They're there to network, and they might kind of be stuck in the same kind of confidence or lack of ability to enter a group. So that could be a great conversation to start having right there. And after that, you just start feeling more natural, more comfortable, picking up conversations, having these conversations off the bat, off the whim with different strangers in the room. So find the person that's standing by themselves and welcome them, right? Introduce yourselves, welcome them to the conversation. Just start talking, right? Build your own little circle, okay? And the last thing I want you to do is start listening first, introducing second. So let's say there is a conversation going. It's okay to go on the kind of the outskirts or kind of the fringe of that conversation and just start listening, because guaranteed someone's going to be like, hey, who are you? I haven't seen you before. My name is, John Smith. What's your name? So people probably extend an introduction to you, even if you just go and just kind of sit there on the sides. Hey, it may feel awkward, but that's exactly what networking events are. They're extremely awkward. So lean into the awkwardness, okay? Have fun with it. Gamify it, right? Walk in with a set plan, set game. Find the person that's standing by themselves solo, even invite them into the group if you did form a group, right? That shows that you're warm, that shows that you're caring, and you never know who that person is that you're bringing into the conversation. So the questions I want you to ask yourself is, whenever you do walk in these events, right? What's your go-to opener when you don't know anyone in the room? I often tell people, don't lead with the conversation killers, which is, how are you? Who do you work for? And what do you do? Those are conversation killers that everyone else has, and our brains automatically go to this default response mode. Ask different, unique questions. What do they do when they're stuck in traffic? Is this the first time of the event? Hey, have you done anything with AI? Everyone's talking AI right now. So you can dive into any AI conversations of how people are using that for their personal lives, because you might get some ideas for your life. Again, these are conversations. If you lead with curiosity, it makes them a lot better of a conversation and more fruitful. So what is your what is your go-to opener whenever you are walking a room full of people around that room? Ask people around you, what do they use? What kind of conversations, springboards do they utilize? You may be able to start getting some other ideas too. So practice it, practice your opener, and even ask other people what they open with, okay? The second question is, what's the worst networking advice that you've ever been given? I haven't thought about this, so I'm not going to answer this, but think about it. It's just a fun game. What is the worst networking advice that you've ever given? Actually, I can actually relate to this. Previously, when I was networking, it was, how many cards can you get, right? Next thing you know, you're coming across as someone that's not intentional. You're coming across as someone that just wants their contact information. You're coming across that really doesn't care about the other person. You just want their contact information. So the worst advice that I actually received was, it's a numbers game. Get as many contacts as you can. I don't agree with that. I think you need to have beneficial, fruitful conversations over stacks of cards that sit on your desk and collect dirt and collect dust over the years that you never really use, because it's a numbers game. You don't remember this person from that person, what they get into outside of work, what this person does, the challenges this person has at work, because you're focused on the numbers, not the person, okay? So here's your weekly challenge as we wrap up today is, at your next event, use one of these approaches within the first 5 minutes of walking in. Just see how it goes, okay? Networking events are scary. Networking events are uncomfortable, but they don't have to be if you go into the right frameworks, go with the right tools, and especially if you go in with the right attitude. So that's it for this episode of Lead with Confidence. Thanks for tuning in. And if you think of someone that can utilize this advice or share, feel free to share this post, leave a comment, leave a review. I love seeing this stuff. And if there's anything that you want me to cover in the future events, you can always chime in with a fan mail underneath wherever you get your podcast from. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.